And of course, he just left it on there. He left it on the thing, and I said a couple of things, but nobody will go listen to it. That's good.
Can you tag me
Yeah.
on my thanks very much.
Guess I can do that.
Yeah. My wife, she's ashamed of me, the way I dress and walk around the shops with her. She'd prefer if I sat in the car. And when I put that hat on that said, hey, she said, basically, you're not coming to the shops looking like that.
What hat was that? Oh, that hat.
That's
The one you had on.
The winter one. Yeah.
I thought you looked really good in that picture. That's why I used it.
That's like the man thing. It's a good thing, But
yeah, I thought you looked really good in that picture. Did you see the little GIF I put on your?
I thought that was really good. That I thought he's getting really good at this technical stuff.
Oh, that was just me at breakfast.
No, right.
Oh, it looks pretty good. Yeah, I didn't see it on the. Yeah, I tagged you.
Right.
I didn't see you. I didn't see you on the. That's pretty cool. I wonder if I could. I could probably put one of those on the screen with this broadcast software. What's happening? Yeah. Huh? Yeah.
Go on. No. I'm sorry. I interrupted.
Well, I was just saying hi to Jen. N.I. Mindful Jen's from N.I. But where's N.I.? What is N.I.?
Not Northern Ireland.
Oh, maybe it's Northern Ireland. Yeah. Terry Willette, Anna Toothman, Ross Gomez or Gomes. Facebook user, I don't know who that is. Lyra2112. Facebook user says, I like your new look, Doc. Raven Sirius and Lisa Nicole. She's a hell of a poet. She's a cool lady, man. Torre Lindberg from Sweden, I believe. I'd love to get him on. I think I sent him a message, but Sue Baxter Fitz, what's happening? Kimberly Brighton, we need to schedule. You know what I think I'm gonna do? What the hell's going on with the focus here? Hang on. I think what I'm gonna.
That could be symbolic. That Todd.
What?
Because you're like out of focus.
I know.
And mine's clear vision. You're like clairvoyant.
I know. Okay, let's see. Use manual focus. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so yeah, what's going on with that? The AI is failing, I say. It's failing. Oh yeah, Kimberly Brighton. She's here in Village of Oak Creek. She works with horses. I had to cancel because I had that 72 hours of purging that the mother ordered for me, which was quite nice. But I think what I'm going to do beginning tonight is I'm going to do a 48-hour soul-a-thon where we're just going to go straight for 48 hours. I got enough material to do it. I'm not totally satisfied with it, but, just to see what happens. Les Dougherty from Dublin.
God bless
the user on Facebook was Quan Yin. See, I'm not sure what platform that is, if that's the Soulogy group or Soulogy One Studios Facebook page, but it doesn't show. It only shows the name if you're on my page. Hey guys, yes, Joe looks sexy with his beard and mustache.
Joe, you need to get your eyes tested. That's all I can say.
Yeah, we're gonna do 48 hours. Kate Lumley's here.
Oh, God bless you, Kate. Kate, I'll be back. We're just a bit busy moving boxes at the moment.
There you go. Diane Roel, you got a whole fan club here. No wonder your wife doesn't want you to have stubble on your face, because now the women are after you, man.
It works by attraction, Todd, not promotion. You know that.
Well, that sounds.
If you open your heart, you see. If you open your heart, what happens is the soul, it magnetizes. It's called the charismatic effect. It magnetizes people to you, you see.
I know. It's quite something I've had to live with my whole life. I don't know, even as a kid.
Well, funnily enough, same here. I'm always attracted like loonies,
I know, I'm telling you. When I was a kid, they'd roll me in as a stroller. They'd roll me into a room, and all the adults would just come to me,
So, cut through all this lightheartedness, because we're going through very serious times. If you want to say things like that, but hey, Todd, what's it all about, Alfie?
What's it all about?
Is it just for the moment that we live?
What's that?
Well, that's the song, isn't it? What's it all about, Alfie? Is it just for the moment that we live? And that was from Cilla Black from Liverpool. right? And I think, yes, it is. It is all about just living for the moment. And when you've done with that moment, live for the next one
Mm.
and do it to the best of your ability with a light heart and open heart and just face head on the challenges that you draw towards you because you set it up for yourself. So there's no point in moaning and groaning. I'm only just learning these things myself, because I was a bit like pointing the finger, and if everybody just behaved in exactly the way that I say they should, my world would be a better place. And I think I can't wait for this event to happen.
I think it happened. I think it happened on the
Oh, wow.
22nd.
I think it happens when you wake up in the morning. There's all sorts of events happening. So
True.
my view, my
True.
view is, and the one I've been trying to follow for 30 odd years now is wake up with a clean sheet, see what the universe has presented to you on that day, right, and accept the challenge of the day, and use your innate resources and skills to get through it to the best of your ability, always trying to maintain an open and flowing and light heart. And when I say light heart, I don't mean stupidity and all that sort of business. I just mean a sort of joyful inner openness. Oh, there you go, Todd. Over to you, son.
Yeah. Well, I went through 72 hours of purging. And then I had a day off, and then it came back last night. But it wasn't as bad. And it wasn't bad before, but I know it can be done with more ease and grace. I just prefer to do it as fast as possible. But yeah, and something interesting happened was like when it was going on, it was like the mind and the body and the soul spirit, like they. I don't know how to explain it, but like the soul and the mind and the body kind of like merged. Like, a lot of times when I get information, I say, well, the past, the present, and the future are all merged, and then you have this epiphany or whatever. And but last night, like the body, we've talked about this. So the body is it's becoming a clear voice now, but my body doesn't speak in English. So one of the things that was interesting last night, it was just showing me that my cells were splitting because the cells, each one of the cells have distortion or trauma or ancestral issue, whatever, you know what I mean? And that it wasn't uniform through the body. So like every cell didn't have the exact same composition. One might have 11% distortion from a Lemuria, or one might have 13% distortion from a trauma as a kid. So what the soul was showing me was that we're split. I don't know, maybe it applies to everybody, I don't know. But it did say it was like a technology. You split the cell, split the cell, split the cell, split the cell. And what happens is it dilutes. It dilutes everything so there's not such a differential between cells or regions. So they can become into uniformity, like homogeneous. And then because of the over production of cells, then what happens is this is where the purging comes, right? And this information came to me after the 3 days before this one started last night, which came on really fast, and it for some reason it just made me understand it, and I actually just kind of watched it, and I'm not explaining all the engineering or all the mechanics of it, but I actually watched it. So as the blood was coming out of my nose this morning and stuff coming out of my eyes and other things coming out of glands, and a very heinous, odoriferous scent coming from under my arms. I was able to approach it all with a smile. Back over to you, bro.
Well, no, that makes perfect sense to me. I think that we're sort of being glooped and we're being sort of emulsified in a soup. And it's a bit like what I saw was a washing machine, and we put the skin suit in the washing machine and it gets turned around with all these sort of magnificent spiritual detergents, right? And all the shit is flushed away. Are you all right?
Wow. I would never do that. That's I can't even tell you what just happened to me. And it's because of you or something. I don't know what happened. I know what you were
Well,
saying. I know what you were saying. Let's revisit that for a second. What, Say what you just said, because whatever you said was really like one of the loudest tones I've ever heard in my life, and it actually it's coming again. So you're supposed to talk about it. Go ahead.
Well, I've got it now. I mean, I'm getting as we speak now, and this is what happens when we're in line. I get like a big whoosh up through my feet, up my spine, and out through the crown of my head. And when I'm sort of connected and in the right sort of frame, and that's why we don't need to. We just turn up, don't we? Open our gobs really and see what comes out next. But I see this very, very clearly. That to me, this is about the spiritual detergent being the finest, finest, finest possible detergent. And it can get into all the cracks. And what it's actually doing is the more that we open up, the more this really fine, subtle energy is getting in and it's sort of infiltrating. I use that word all the time. It's infiltrating, right, our sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Non-real body. I can't think of anything else to say to that now. But it's a cleansing effect, and what actually happening is it's happening in our bone marrow, where our bone marrow is being sort of emulsified into a gel-like substance, and the real primal stem cells are being released then in order to start to radiate outwards and send that message of cleansing through every cell and system in the body. I mean, I've said to you before is people ask me, what exactly do you do? And I said, well, I'm a psycho-neuro-endocrino immunohematologist. And they say, well, what's that about? Well, it starts off the psyche, really. The P is about perception. It's about how we receive information, how we then translate that information, right? How we then see the world, because we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. I think what's actually happening now is all these filters are being removed from us in this cleansing process, right? And we're all beginning to see really clear what's being going on. From eons of time. So this is what I feel. And I think all the stuff that people are going through, I've got loads of friends who've been on to me to say they're experiencing all sorts of pains like they've never had before, right? And they're going along, they're having all sorts of tests. And the standard answer is, we can't find any organic problems, And this is the thing is, because medicine and the medicine that I work with, it doesn't really understand subtle energy medicine. And Todd, I've been a member of a society for a long, long time. It's called the
Skull and Bones.
Yeah, no, it's called the subtle energy. It's the scientific subtle energy medicine. I can't remember the international scientific study of subtle energy medicine. ICEM, it's called. And they were talking about all this stuff 25 years ago. But what's actually happening is it's the Tesla thing is vibration, frequency, energy. And as we all sit still long enough and just surrender and open up, this energy that's coming in from the so-called great central sun, I got this tonight when you're talking to Todd, just try and explain it in terms of a deep sea diver. And when they go into the sea to start with, they get used to it. And so they become acclimatized and accustomed to that level. But then as they go deeper, then the pressure increases. So they've got to stay a little bit of time at that stage. They've got to re-equilibrate until they plateau out, and then they descend further then. It's a gradual process, and you can't, because if you go in too deeply, then all the gas escapes and you get these nitrogen bubbles. And, so the whole thing is, this event, and this is my feeling, I could be wrong, this event, I think it's more of an educational variety where we're being given more and more information quite quickly, in order to sit with it, detach from it, sit behind it, watch it as if it's a play, and then look at all the menu of options that we've got and try and choose the one that our soul aligns with and go forward with that. So, and that's what I feel at the moment. I've got my body going through hell, but there's a part of me that's sitting back, watching and feeling what action to take next. And it seems to be working, but it's so easy to get caught out in all the distractions and all the bollocks that's going on in the world, And another thing, Todd, the world that I see out of my eyes is the past. It must be just the past. We're just looking at a projection. And if it's a projection of what's already been processed, then it's gone. There's no point in trying to change anything that's gone there.
Right.
It's to change the information at the projector before it's projected. That's how we're going to change stuff, in my view. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. change everything before it's projected, right? That's what you
Yeah.
said? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me come in on that one. But let me just put up a couple of comments here because I noticed on the 22nd, I put up a post. I said, I think this solar flash is hit because it was just my own little thing. And I just did it kind of be playful. But a lot of people responded to it. I mean, like, I don't know, I didn't count it or anything, but there was boatloads. And the comments were all over the place in terms of one way or the other stuff coming to the surface, right? So this strange pains in head and eyes go in and out of focus. Feel it's working on the brainstem and third eye. That resonates with me in my own situation. I don't know what's going on with the eye thing, but like I literally can't see in focus, like say a stop sign 30 feet away. I mean, I know it's a stop sign, but and then here's another interesting one. Millie put up. I had a friend who was a GP into his 70s. He said energy medicine will be the medicine of the future. So yeah, I don't know. To me, there's like three. I'm gonna go back to what you said, but there's like three things. One, I was talking to Morgan today, and she's like, "Oh, you always say that we don't need to do shadow work anymore," and I do say that because I try to focus on creating, and I know that's just what I'm trying. I'm not saying that's something people should advocate, but what she pointed out was my definition of shadow was much more restricted than what she's talking about, because really what she's talking about is anything that is coming up to be revealed, right? So I think some of these physical scenarios, these symptomatic things, that with that in mind, it's a little bit easier to look at, because I don't know. I'm just tired of being in a place of disempowerment. I just want to choose my words carefully, but I totally get what she's talking about, and that's really what's happening with all these comments people made on that post and even on the shows. There's no question. I mean, I don't know anyone who's not going through it in a substantial way. Now, I've talked to people who don't go there, but with a little probing, you can tell, yeah. So everyone's going through it, and I think this is something really we got to get on the table. But anyway, so that was one thing, and the other thing was that I'm trying to, I don't know, the people we talked to yesterday, like who was it? Was on yesterday? Two ladies, or I can't remember. But like, there's just a bunch of people out there that have this forecast, and including in the astrological part of it, which is that between now and the end of February, we're cleaning out the closet. And then you were talking about what you were seeing or what was happening. And to me, when you were talking about it, what it reminds me of is when you get some, like Ajax or Comet, the ones the old school ones with the powder, yeah. And you put it in the bathtub or the sink, and if it's damp, it starts to like get blue, and then to me, there's something about that, right? Like there's something about, I don't know, like I was doing this show yesterday, and I kept seeing these white snowflakes looking things, like the kind that you cut out with paper, and and the lady was talking to me. It was the last show, very powerful lady, Susan Diamond Crystal Curtis. So as she was talking, which isn't out of the ordinary, there was multidimensional stuff happening, but all these they look like paper cutout snowflakes kept falling in front of my face. I thought, what is that? That's kind of weird. And then at some point, my crown opened up and they started going into my crown. So what I saw was, I go, what is that? So then I look, and it reminded me of what I just said, like the comet. And they were landing like in my cellular, and they were like absorbing and turning. They actually were turning blue, right? The material, which is more like a powder now. And then when you were talking, it brought the rest of it to me, which was the grit, right? Like, because that comet stuff has like a grit to it, like sand, and that's what was happening. Like, that's what I felt like was happening. Like I could feel like something scrubbing, and maybe that's actually what's happening, per what you're saying, is we're actually scrubbing the bones, right?
Yeah, I think, I think what I've learned is that we have to make meaning of our own metaphors. It's not for anybody else to understand our metaphors, and we don't really have to try and describe it to them, because they'll have their own symbols, they'll have their own colors, they'll have their own feelings that mean things to them. It's quite difficult explaining your own spiritual experience to somebody else, because because we're so unique. Something else that came to me is that none of us is special. We're all specialized, and I thought that's good, because we do get a lot of special people knocking about.
Right.
you know, you need to listen to me because I'm special and I'm carrying the only message that the world wants to hear. All that sort of stuff. Right. Well, there's quite a few of them knocking about at the moment, in my view. and I'm not careful about the words I use because I don't care.
I know you don't.
I don't care because I'm not being offensive. I'm just saying that there seems to be a lot of special people around who think that they're carrying extraordinarily special messages. And in my view, could be wrong, they're not. We've all got exactly, right, a key that fits the lock perfectly. And we all need individual locks to fit the individual, keys, right, to make the world a better place, But I got today, no, Joe, there's nobody special, but everybody's specialized. And that brought to me the uniqueness of us all, because this is definitely, in my view, about collective individuality, But most people, including myself, Todd, it's taken me a long time to start to see this. But, people say be yourself. And I think, what are they talking about? But in order to be yourself, you've got to know yourself. And in order to know yourself, you've basically got to take your eyes, turn them the other way around, and start looking objectively at your subjectivity. And who wants to do that unless they're absolutely desperate and in terrible turmoil and emotional pain? And I think that that's what the crucifixion is. It's when you come to the point where you think, I've racked my brains, I've tried absolutely everything, right, to get myself out of this shithole, right? Please, God. And you sort of say it, even though you mightn't be connected to God. You say, please, God, show me what's going on here, and kapow. And I think that opens the door to the next level, the fourth dimension, which is the access point into intuition and insider information. And I think that that's what we've got to build on, based upon my experience,
Yeah.
And the other thing is, as well, is, sometimes, becoming more and more free, right? It doesn't mean to say, people say to me, I come out with some shit all the time, they say to me, you're not very spiritual, I said, what do you mean spiritual? Who said I'm spiritual? I'm not saying that. Well, you're supposed to be a spiritual person. I've said, where did you get that idea from? And the other thing is, we're all spirits on a human journey. I think, oh, God almighty, where's the proof?
Yeah.
Where's the evidence for that? No, it's true. No, you're saying it's true. Where's the evidence?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying to people now. In this 3D world, right, where's the evidence you're going on about? How do you know that we survive after death? Exactly. How do you know that we're in a 15-dimensional time construct with 5 different levels of densities that we come through as we incarnate into this human body? Where's the evidence? Over to you, Todd. You can show me the evidence.
Let me show you the evidence. No, I agree with you, and I totally get what you're saying, because I say it too. I could be worm dirt. It doesn't mean that deep down inside, innately, in my own truth, I know what I am, and I know who I am, and I know what I'm doing here. But the reason that I say that, what you just said, is because at some point, and I think that point's now, it becomes a distraction. It becomes a distraction to almost, and can be a bypassing of the human journey. Because, oh, well, I'm a soul, so, fuck it. The point is to be here and be present beyond the words and the cliches and the new ageisms and all that, and to really be present, because that's all there is the eternal moment. And why would we cheat the human, right? Somebody put up a note a minute ago and they said, is anyone getting the feeling that we're in a simulation? And I know we all think about this. We've all thought about this. But to your point, just to go over it one more time, how do we know that the 26,000 year cycle is legit? How do we know anything that's been presented to us both in the ethers and in the physical reality isn't something that somebody scripted? So at the end of the day, you don't know, or you can't prove it, number one. And number two, what does that leave you? Well, it leaves you with, all you need and all you got, which is yourself, right? And
Exactly.
there's some kind of supernatural thing, or things, I should say, that occur as we sustain for longer and longer periods of time this presence, right? This presence of where there is nothing behind you, nothing in front of you, nothing to the side of you. There's just this moment, either with yourself, with nature, with your brother here, with a bunch of people, and there's something about it that's coming online. And I can see this in my own life because I don't really stress that much, but there are certain things that I've been stressing about. If I examine it for a while, like for over a year, but I'm not stressing about them anymore.
Yeah.
And so it can't just be me. And it's not like I'm walking around going, oh, I'm present and everything's. It's not like that. It's not, and it's not like painful. All the it's an always changing kind of mosaic kind of thing. It's always changing. I can look at a mountain today. I can look at Thunder Mountain, and I can get a message or messages and see things, even different faces. And tomorrow I'll come back and it's a whole nother message with a whole bunch of different faces. So that's what I'm noticing about myself, is that my mind isn't going out to play anymore. It's not going out down these paths of how is this going to happen, or I need to do this, or what is so-and-so going to think, or, all these different things. It's not happening. And I'm noticing that what's happening is I'm just like, I guess, present, present. I don't know. Something happened on the 22nd. The thing with the eyes. I mean, I think that's got something to do with it. But anyway, it's just happening, and it's kind of cool. And to your remark about the people that are special, somebody put up a sign. They said, yeah, and they want to charge a bunch of money for it too. And really, I've done, energetically, because I'm not really a practitioner, but I've done it. I think that's part of what's happening too, and that's probably why these things can be discussed now more openly, and I bet you they will continue to be, because what's happening is our over-identification with those things which woke us up, the tools, the modalities, the past life memories, our specialties, are going to have to detach as well. We can't hold on to them like a security blanket, like Linus on Charlie Brown. All of them have to go, and it doesn't mean that they're going to leave us, because they're not. It's like me and you. If we break up, it doesn't mean we're going to lose each other. We're not going to lose each other. We're still there. We're just in this, little phase or transition where, for one reason or another, we've got to work some things out, or whatever the case is, or whatever the circumstances are. Our internet goes out, and we can't do this anymore, whatever it is. We're not losing anything, and we're not going to lose any of our past lives. We're not going to lose any of our skills and abilities. We're just having to be brought down to an even playing field, and there's no exceptions. So, I think that's what's happening, and I think that's why we've had a lot of triggers and activations and identities leaving us, all the same thing. Yeah. Back to you.
No, I agree. I agree. I feel exactly the same way. I generally couldn't give two hoots about anything at all. Right? People say to me, "Well, how do you think it's all going to work out?" I've got no idea. What are you doing tomorrow? I've got no idea. I don't even know what I'm going to be doing later on this afternoon. I have some sort of a plan in my mind, but generally speaking, it never works out as I plan it. It never does. And somebody's put here, because how can we know ourselves when everything's changing all the time? This is true. And I'm quite happy in myself, Todd. And I really don't give a shit, as you know, whether anybody else is not happy with what I'm doing. I don't care. Right. But I do know one thing. I don't want to harm anybody. If
Yeah.
I can, I want to be helpful. I am a relatively helpful chap. But who said that as we become more and more enlightened to me means I feel freer in myself. I feel lighter in myself. That's what it means to me. Who says that we have to be nice? And who says that we have to help anybody else? Because if somebody asks me, how do you see this situation now? And I tell them, and they get a cob on because I've just expressed how I truly see it. And I do, because they ask me and I'll tell them, right? And then they frown and then they say, well, you shouldn't think like that. And then I smile and laugh, and they become belligerent or they become upset because I'm laughing at them, right? And I said, but you just asked me. Not that I need to explain to you, special person, right? But you've just asked me, how do you see it? I've told you. Something triggered you. You're then telling me that I should behave to your standards. Well, why don't you go away and leave me alone and get out of my face? And that's the sort of person I've become, Todd, because the other one, I used to hang off every person's words. I would change me to suit them and to suit their tone and to suit the way their face had changed in order to please them. Guess what, Todd? I don't do it anymore. And I've never felt so happy about it in all of my life.
That's good. That's liberation.
Yeah. And that's not to say that I won't wake up in the morning and feel like shit and think, aye, what's going on? Well, I'll do the same thing. I knock on my heart like that. I go, hello, what are the instructions for today, please? Right? Please look after me, guard me, guide me, and show me what to do. And if it's a tough thing, give me the courage to do it. Thanks very much. Over and out. I'm just going for my breakfast. Goodbye. And that's what I do, Todd, every morning. I don't try and work it out, and I can't be bothered trying to think my way through things anymore. I'm just sort of going with it, and it seems to be working.
Yeah. Yeah, it is working. It is working. So, yesterday, I woke up, or was it today? I don't even know. Either today or yesterday. It was yesterday. And you know how you wake up, like you were just talking about, you wake up and you're just like, you feel like somebody beat the bloody hell out of you, right?
Yeah.
But I was wondering if you know, and I don't know if you do, but like the stuff that's going on inside my body, and then reading other people's comments from that post I put up on the 22nd, it's different than it was for me. It's different than it was before. Obviously, the third eye has expanded, and I'm able to see things inside my body. But it's not just that. It's like what's happening to my body. I can tell it's not like it was before, like 6 months ago or 3 months ago or a year ago. And in its certain areas, it's the head. The head feels like there's a lot of pressure on the inside, like air needs to be let out. The sinus cavity, which, I mean, somebody could say, well, you're in Sedona, the weather changed, and maybe that's got something to do with it. But there's something else going on. And then other parts of me as well. But do you have any a bead at all on the transformation in the physical body? Is there a set, a symptomatic list of things that are, and I know people talk about ascension symptoms, but this feels different to me. Can you shed any light on that?
Yeah, the way I see it, Todd, is, and I think there's massive pineal gland activation, and the pineal gland's been closed down for various reasons for a long, long time. It's starting to activate and open more. Now, the pineal gland has been shown to have what's called vestigial remains of optic nerve fiber. That just means that in the dark past, right, it was basically another photoreceptor. And it makes sense, doesn't it? Because the sun's shining down on a person's crown. So they feel that this activation of the pineal gland, right, is also stimulating the brow chakra as well. So it's almost like there's 3 hours, there's three eyes all working together now, but there's more and more light coming in. And as the light comes in as well, the pineal gland also has something called two suprachiasmatic nuclei. You wanted the technical details, so here it comes. And they're all to do with diurnal variation and circadian rhythms. So this is about time. It's about time. And that's why people are having time distortions, where one day they can be active. Their thoughts are coming in, or it seems that their thoughts are coming in really, really rapidly, and they just can't handle it. And maybe the next day, there's just no thoughts coming in at all, So this is what's happening now. And I see that there's almost like 12 photoreceptors in the crown, which each if you like, feed a different system in our bodies, So more and more people are talking about the 12 chakras of the individual are now being activated because the 12 chakras of Mother Earth are being activated as well. So all these things are going on. Now, I don't know whether this is true or not, but this is what I see in my own mind's eye, and it makes perfect sense to me. But is it true? I don't know. Well, it's just a theory. I know that. All I'm saying is, you just asked me. I'm telling you, Is it true or not? I've got no idea. But this is what I feel. And so what will happen then, Todd, is, as the sun comes in, as this more and more information comes through and the frequencies increase from the great central sun, we're feeling that now more and more as our own vibration, as Mother Earth's vibration increases, because we're on Mother Earth, our own vibrations increases. It linked to these 12 activation sites, which are almost like 12 portals linked to the halls of Amenti. I'm getting all this stuff in, which I don't know much about, but it's happening to everybody, and lots of people can't handle it, and they want off the planet. More and more people are committing suicide now because they just don't know what to do. And I said to you last time, this is, in my view, Soulogy's purpose is that people link in and they go, oh my God, I'm no longer alone. There's other people going through this stuff like me. And that's why it's great having so many different people on who can try and explain it from their own point of view. And that's the whole point. Their own point of view is how they see the world, how they take on board information cognitively, emotionally, and how they process information. Because behavior is the result of what we think and how we feel. That's what determines the way we behave, right? So go on, mate.
No, I'm just repeating it. Because I'm thinking, what we think and how we feel, right? Is What did you say? Is what?
Well, that's representative of how we think and feel is how we process information, no matter how it's coming in.
Right.
That's how we process information. So that will determine our perception. We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are.
Right.
So the way we see the world is where we're up to in our thinking and in our emotional processing. However, the emotional processing, most of that goes on, 4/5 of it goes on below the level of our consciousness. So we mostly automatically programmed to make choices based on unconsciousness. But now, as we process information unconsciously now, because it's not aligned most of the time with God's will for us, or whatever we want to say, that will cause us pain. So if we focus on feelings first and say, hang on, I feel triggered here, or I feel emotionally disturbed. This is the next bit, is I need to step back, get into the spectator's seat, and ask the question, why am I feeling emotionally disturbed here? Because I've been triggered. And as we've said many times before on here, Todd, right, if it's a trigger, it's not God, right? It must be the ego. And as we're trying to release, and we're not trying to get shut of the ego, we're trying to get shut of the attachments to the ego, the automatic sort of psycho-cybernetic loops that activate us and cause us to keep, hang on, I'll just get this right in a minute, keep making the same old choices that we've made for eons and eons and eons of time. Pain is the touchstone of recovery, meaning that when we're in pain, it's an indication that something needs to change. And it's never anybody else except ourselves. And that's the hard part, Todd, because we prefer to change everybody else to suit ourselves. When we realize that if we change ourselves, we change the world, we change how we see things, that's the way we go forward. Bleeding hell, I'm all
Bravo.
now after.
Touche. The thing about, I'll come back to the last part. The thing about the sun codes coming in through our crown, which is pretty widely acceptable, I would say. You know, people do meditations, you know, open your crown and go into the cosmos. And then that coming into the pineal, right? Yeah. And creating the physical. I'm just trying to go over it again because I feel like this is what's happening. And then the other thing I noticed too, when the planets align, let's say that, which is, you know, I'm looking at like numerology, the 22nd of October. I'll just stop there. They painted a blue sky. In Sedona was totally overcast by the end of the day. There were so many chemtrails. Yeah. And I was tapping in, like, what's going on? You know, I do that sometimes, get different answers, but I realized that it's strictly to keep us from receiving the code. That's it.
Absolutely.
It's just trying to slow it down or stop it, which is so stupid. But so that makes sense with that. Now, the other thing you were talking about, okay, so what I think and what I feel is my experience. Okay? So I'm all with you, you know, that on the emotion thing. I mean, that's like my main thing now is I know I'm an alchemist and a magician, and I know that my primary source material is my emotions. And I haven't quite figured out how it works, but I do know that every time I sit with an emotion and for a pivotal time or an extensive period of time where there's no story left, I have creative outburst. Or I get, you know, to be honest with you, I get kind of horny. But not in a bad way. It's just the energy. I can feel the energy coming. That's usually when I call Morgan on the phone and try to, you know, never work. but okay, so yeah, and so I look at that now, like where I've been with myself, because the emotions were unbridled, and so they were running rampant, which means that our experience wasn't always that pleasant, because that would mean that we were projecting or taking offense or in defense or whatever the case is, or thinking we're special, right? And I don't want to go there. We don't want to get too. We got to stay in the 0 point field. But further, so now it's not just my experience. Now, as I'm everyone else, I'm starting to gain control of my powerful emotions as I embody them. Okay, which is strange because this is an earthbound part of us, right? But it's true for me, and because what I'm understanding, like you said, it's never anyone else. It's always going to be the changes on me, right? So if I look at my relationship with, you know, if I look at Soulogy, or if I look at my own self in whatever capacity, whatever's involved, whatever I would like to create, this is the most important thing. So it's not just my experience now. It's an experience that I want to share with other people, like at least one other person, right? So we're two or more gathered. So what can I do but to, like you said, get it at the point of origin, right? Don't let it get into the field. And if you do, pull it back. But this is kind of where I'm at, which is why I'm trying to be careful. And my sarcasm is dropping and dropping and dropping because I realize that I'm contributing, to what we're trying to transform. So it's a pretty, interesting journey when you consider everything that we've gone through, and we end up right back at ourselves with that snake eating its tail, right?
See, we're looking at emotions. Emotions are the manifestation of something deeper that's going on below the surface. And what's going on below the surface of emotions? Because emotions are energy for action. Emotion. Most people know that on here. But what's actually happening is it's instincts that drive emotion. It's instincts because they are the primary driving forces. And there are basically four main instincts. Okay, there's the primary instinct, which is associated to the adrenal glands, and that's to physically protect yourself. That's the first one that comes in. We talked about this in our brainstem egocentric narcissism talk the last time we had. So the first thing that we do is the first instinct that comes online is the instinct to look after our physical person self. Okay. The second one that comes online, right? So that's the most powerful. That's where anger and defense and everything else comes in, that one, in order to defend yourself. Right. The next one that comes online is the sex instinct, another powerful one. The third one that comes online is the instinct for society, and it's to be in the company of other people. Right. And the fourth instinct is the instinct for self-esteem. How do I think about myself? So if we take those as the four primary instincts, peace of mind comes to all human beings when all those instincts are working harmoniously with one another. Okay. So the thing is, emotional disturbance must be because those instincts are fighting with one another. Okay, so they're in collision with one another. Now, the thing about instincts on the rampage is they balk at investigation. They'll do anything to create a cloud shield to say, oh, no, it's not that. And they'll justify their actions, but they're still left in emotional turmoil. And that's it, Todd, you see, because when you come to realize that, let's say you're like a sex maniac and you're pretending that you're not, so you infiltrate into society, and basically anything that stops moving for 10 minutes, you've got to have them, you know what I mean? That type of thing. So you're being driven, right? I mean, even unconsciously, because you might be totally unaware of this, right? Your head's like trying to do the good Christian thing when underneath the surface there's this like rampant monster trying to get out, you see. So that's when drink comes in. When drink and drugs come in, that one then comes to the surface. And you can wake up the next morning and you've done all sorts of things and you think, oh my God, I've been possessed. Well, you haven't been possessed. All you've done is you've chemically disinhibited yourself. And all these things that have been compressed for years have come to the surface and had their way. You see, but when you wake up the next morning, the lid's back on and you're pushing it all down again. So once you start to get honest with yourself and pry a bit deeper, you can say, yes, I've been suppressing and repressing all these things. I can see now. Here's the hard part, Todd. When your mind realizes this and you can see what needs to be done, you don't have the power to change it. That's the real dilemma. You haven't got the power as a human being to change this. You've got to surrender then and say to the universe or the divine, you've got to say, I can see now. I've had all this compressed lust for years, and when I drink, it all comes out and I'm like possessed. Right. So you admit it first. And then you have to hand it all over then to a power greater than yourself. This is the act of surrender, to say, will you show me one step at a time how to balance these instincts, please? And that's where the real discipline comes in, Todd, because one day at a time, the universe will send you on your stage of awareness for that day. It will send you the cast, the players, the scenery, the architecture, everything for you to move forward into a more healthy balance, because really peace of mind is when all your instincts are in perfect harmony with one another. Christ, I didn't know I was going to get onto that, but
I like
that's
this.
it. You see,
So
that's it. But just let me do this.
Go ahead.
So you can think as much as you like. I'm going to change that tomorrow, right? And the thing under the surface just goes, ha, 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 That's what you think. Right.
Let's explore this.
Uh,
S-
okay.
So, instinct. Okay, so you got self-esteem was the fourth one. Sex was
Yeah.
the second one.
Yeah.
What were the other two?
Social was the third one. The third solar
Social.
plexus chakra. Yeah.
So, and quickly, what does that? What does social mean?
Social means the ability to be in a crowd, right? To enjoy their company, not
Okay.
to try and be the boss of it or
Okay.
not to be the victim, but to be comfortable around other people.
Okay.
And there's loads of people, Todd, because they haven't dealt with the first two underneath,
What's
right?
the
They've
first? And
got social.
what's the
The
first?
first one's physical security.
Physical security is
Yeah.
instinct. Sex is instinct. Social.
Yeah. Is
Uh,
instinct.
yeah.
We,
Social.
we need other people. We need to work with other people.
Yes. Okay, that's instinct and self-esteem.
Yeah.
Wow, I like this a lot. I like this a lot because, okay, so as an example, the little description you gave us, we're gonna tell ourselves that we're gonna make this change, right? Like I'm going to go and mix with people at least every 2 or 3 days because this is part of and so we get to an awareness and we know that's important and it makes total sense, okay, but we can also sit there like you said and go, well, we don't have to do that. I'm an empath, or whatever variety of reasons. We're actually bullshitting ourselves, right? I mean, because
Yeah.
oneness is oneness. Unity consciousness is like everything else. For those that are staying on this ride, we will physically represent that which we know to be universally true. So you don't have for very long, if you do, like the universe or the multiverse doesn't have a corner that they put somebody in to isolate them because they were bad or for whatever reason. And like I said, and maybe it occurs, and I'm sure it does. Earth could be considered that way, but it doesn't stay that way for long. There's a purpose to it. So, but I guess this whole thing about being spirit flesh and actually living this and being this, as opposed to only talking about it as the latest fad of the millennia, right? I mean, how many times, if you go back, even in the last 1,000 years, was the end of the world proclaimed? So, having said that, and going back to what we talked about earlier, what do we really have? Just the present. We can maximize this present beyond all beyond, like even beyond the universal, you know, estimation or theory, because really, this is the whole thing about the universe and about us is we never know what we're getting into. We really don't. It's an unknown. That's why we all get the shit scared out of us when we end up in the void in a lucid dream or in a meditation. And anyone that's been there knows what I'm talking about. There's no sound, there's no color, there's no nothing, there's no body, right? But this is really the MO of our experience, not only in our soul lineage but our human lineage. So back to just conclude it. Yeah, there's something very powerful about what you said about these four instincts. There's something, and I don't know. I just know it resonates. I know that it makes a lot of sense. The best example for me is we, all of us, every one of us, every single one of us. I'm convinced. I'm not saying it's the gospel truth. It's time. If it's not time, it will be very quickly, and it will be a prerequisite for what we might call ascension, and that is to come out. Come out of the cave, show the world who you are. We cannot be complete without you, just like you can't be complete without us. So if we're having a physical experience to the nth degree with all the capabilities that we know we have, the trick is how do we turn those on? And I'm convinced that it's through these challenging little things in life that seem very human and very mundane and exclusive to the human. So when you say self-esteem, sex, society, what was the other one?
Security, physical security.
Security, yeah. Yeah. And I like them, they're all S's too. Security, sex, society, self-esteem, surrender.
Yeah, well, and this is the journey, Todd. Sorry for butting in. This is the journey towards self-actualization. In psychology, it's the 7 stages of Maslow's later hierarchy of needs. But what I've tried to do is just relate it to the 7 endocrine glands, but also the 7 chakras as well. So that's why I'm trying to link it all up.
Where are the
But what I've realized...
Are the endocrine glands in the locations of the chakras?
Yeah. Okay. The chakras, the endocrine glands are the externalizations of the chakras. Okay. But the thing is, I mean, there's another thing, because there's actually 12 chakras, because the first chakra is single, then the next 5 branch out into positive and negative, or masculine and feminine, and then the final one closes back up and reunifies again as it comes out of the crown and the pineal gland. But that's another story. Just let me explain though. So if you look at your own behavior on the day, and you make a note in the day, like a spot check inventory, I was disturbed there. I can't quite work out what it is, but it's a disturbance in me. So I'll make a note of that, because, and how I behaved in the situation. At the end of the day, you can almost look back and work out which instinct was being threatened. Okay. So for example, you see, Todd, people can say, oh no, somebody who can't be in society generally become reclusive. But they justify their reclusivity as because they do meditation and they're sending out love and all that. The truth about it, a lot of these people is, and I work with a lot of people like this, is that they're just afraid of being in society. Yeah. What will they think of me, you see? Right. So the whole point is, if you can't be in a crowd and be by yourself, right, and be comfortable in either of those situations, then you're limited. Yeah. It's like people in the physical one, Todd. If you can't stand up for yourself, right, and say, I'm not having that, right, or you can't back off and say, yes, you're correct. If you can't go forward or you can't go backwards, once again, you're limited. But what's actually happened is, from birth, we're conditioned, our instincts are conditioned, mostly by society, to say, don't act like this, respect authority. So we've already got those programs in us. What's actually happening now is, we're being shown the programs in us that have hindered us from being our true free selves. And it's painful, Todd, because what it's going is, it's going against our justifications for staying like that. And there's now no justification for not being washed away and being unprogrammed. So we're not going back to be deprogrammed. We're being completely and utterly cleansed so that we're in a state of unconditional love. And there's no conditions attached to it. That's where we're going, So it's like the sex one, Todd. If you're being driven by sex all the time and you've just got to have sex or release the sex urge or whatever, however you want to do that, if you can't say, no, I don't fancy that tonight and be happy with it, then you're limited again. So have a lot, have none. If you can be happy with either of those and balanced. So what I'm saying is, if you start off in a normal, balanced way, you can stand up for yourself or you can back off. You can move up to the next one. If you can say no to sex when you want to and say yes to sex when you want to, then you're balanced. If you can be in society or be on your own and you're happy with that, then the fourth one comes in. How do I feel about myself? I'm all right with that. I'm all right, Jack. That's what freedom is, Todd. But you don't just get it by thinking about it. You have to actually get put in a situation by the universe where you get tested to the nth degree to see if you really mean it. So you can say it, but can you do it? And that's where we come down to talking the talk and walking the walk.
And if you look at survival in sex, in society, I can see what you're saying. I just can't like I can't like explain it, but I can see it because all four of those categories, they're like tied together too. If I have if my self-esteem is out of whack, I'm going to question and question and question my security or lack thereof. It's never going to be good enough. There won't be enough locks on the doors, right? If I look at self-esteem sex wise, I mean, I don't need to say anything else because everybody's been there. And then society. Why is it that I won't go into a crowd and mix it up? Is it because what? What's why? Because what? Because I don't need to. I'm a starseed. I can stay on the ship. I don't do people. But see, I don't think we're going to have a choice here. It only makes sense. Just like co-creation and collaboration are a physical necessity or something that will occur if we're actually going to experience unity consciousness in these bodies. We pop out of these bodies, we're in our light bodies, and we're there, right? But to do it here while we're walking and talking in these bodies, absolutely it makes sense that we're going to be out there mixing it up. It doesn't mean we're going to be with each other 24/7. We will still have our sanctuary, right? Our home and so on. But these things are so tied with each other. They're so tied with each other. If you had this person, let's just say, odds are, okay, if you had a person who had no problem being out in society, who had no problem talking to anybody, where do you think their self-esteem is? Now, I'm not saying this is a person that has a bunch of masks on either, right? I shouldn't say this, okay? Well, I got invited to a potluck last night, and by a very good friend of mine and some other people that were going to be there, and I was going to go. Now, like everybody else, I've been going through, stuff, and you just go through stuff, and sometimes you want to be alone. So I actually sat in the car for an hour trying to decide, should I go or should I not? And this was crazy because, I don't know, I've never had a conversation for this long with myself, but I was actually putting myself in both scenarios and watching everything play out. Why do you want to go? Well, because I don't have much money and I'd like to eat some food and it'd be cool to talk to people. But then I put myself in there and I thought, well, wait a minute. First of all, because you want some food, there's no reason to go. I can go buy a sandwich. 2, why do you want to go? Well, okay, if it's not for that, then I guess I want to go and talk to people. And then I put myself in that situation. I thought, no, I don't really want to talk to people right now. But it was for the right reasons. And this took me like an hour, okay? And then I finally decided that what I wanted to do was to write music, was to write a love song and to write a couple other songs. And also to process whatever the hell was going on with me because it was needing my attention. And but the part about going to the potluck, I don't know. And now that we're talking about it, there was this whole thing going on, and I clearly knew, not just because I needed to process some stuff, but I clearly knew that if I went over there, this is the good part. If I went over there, that I would be operating behind a mask. I knew it as sure as I'm sitting here. Would that apply to that same group of people tomorrow or the next day? No. But in that moment, I knew that if I walked in that door, I would not be me. I would not be transparent. I would have a mask on or some character of me, of some personality of me, and I just couldn't stomach it, So I don't know, maybe like what this thing that you're bringing up about the instinct, I'm really going to dive into this because I can see something in there that I've never seen before. A simplification, maybe. I don't really know, but this whole thing I'm telling you about last night, if I throw that in there, if I throw my experience last night into the mix of these four things that you talk about, these four instincts, so it's security, sex, society, and self-esteem, and have that type of conversation with these four elements, I think I'll do some good for myself. I really do.
I think, Todd, it's already started by what you've just said there. This is just confirmation of what's already started to happen in you, really, because our motto is, isn't it, to thine own self be true. And as we started off this conversation, this was about refinement and being more truthful and basically seeing how deeply down we've been programmed to go to occasions when we've never really wanted to. So if we can actually say in the moment, no, I don't fancy that tonight, thanks very much. Now, if somebody else then says, well, I think you should, and they try and cajole you and coax you, and you give in and go, then I can assure you, you won't feel very good about yourself, you see. And this is the difficulty. So it's saying in the moment and being true with it and cutting through. No, thanks very much for asking, but I'm going to stay on my own tonight and write some music. Yeah. Oh, you miserable bastard. No, with all due respect, because people try and cajole you and coax you, don't you?
Yeah.
And so you can say, no, honestly, no, thanks very much. And once they know that you really mean it, they don't try anymore then. It's when you leave the door slightly open and there's a chink in the armor, that's when we get sucked back into the old habits then, and we don't move forward, That, I may be right or I may be wrong there.
No, I agree. And because the thing I noticed too last night was it was such a deep conversation because the examination of a potential choice created an examination of the criteria to make the choice. Like it drilled down is what happened. And what was fascinating to me was any and all things that were examined were given equal measure. So in other words, I was like, okay, I don't want to go. And then I was like, wait a minute, why don't you want to go? Do you not want to go because you're copying out? Do you not want to go? I'm telling you, it went through all of these things. So I was examining whether I went, why were you going to go? Whether you didn't, why weren't you going to go? It was pretty awesome. So to be bringing this up, and ultimately, and it took a long time. It took like an hour, like 45 minutes. Now, the pressure of what was coming on, because I did some serious purging last night, that was a factor, but it's conceivable I could have gone over there, spent an hour, been talkative and social, had a nice meal, and but there was something inside of me that I don't know how to explain it. Even the depth of the conversation, it was just different. It was just really, really different. And maybe you're right. Maybe this is because to me, this whole thing about this innate, this instinctive, and just using these four simple categories, because I think you said there's more to it, but that makes all the sense in the world. Like just attaching self-esteem to society, sex, and security, or survival, whatever it was, that right there, like if I look at the categories now, security, survival, I'm a nomad at this point. Yeah. All my stuff is in the car or in, it's, but I'm not rattled by it. So I guess the self-esteem is in line, right? The second one, sex. Well, that's not going on. It's not. I don't know. I'll have to wait till I see Morgan. But I don't feel like I definitely feel like the distortion of sex has diminished or disappeared soon, or is soon to disappear. Let's put it that way. I feel like that the sacredness of it, I could step up to, no doubt. And that would speak to my self-esteem, right?
Yeah.
And then what's the third one? Society.
Social.
Yeah. And a lot of people may find this interesting, but I have, I certainly have anxiety. I have issues with self-confidence and become self-conscious. And not just if I'm trying to sing, but if I'm in those situations, depending on what my chemistry is at that time. But if I had to look at security, sex, society, self-esteem, I would say that my biggest challenge right now, to be honest, is society. So I'm really thankful for this conversation because now I can equate it to my survival, right? Sex and self-esteem.
Well, let me just say this for everybody listening as well. It's okay to identify then where you feel there's an imbalance. Here's the thing though, we don't have the power to change that then. You can't change it through psychology. It's got to be changed through spirituality, and it's got to be a higher or a deeper form of spirituality. This is where the surrender comes in. And I just mean surrender. It just means God, spirit, divine, higher self, whatever you want to call that thing, deeper, more intelligent self, innate intelligence. I am not sure how to balance this. I ask you one day at a time to please set the scene for me where I can actually take the actions that will rebalance this situation. So you don't have to go into all thinking. If you're thinking and your head's battered, you're missing the point here. The idea is to take both those sides. Shall I stay or shall I go? I don't know. I'm going to take both of those schools of thought. I'm going to stick it in my heart. Please, God, show me what to do. Give me the power and the courage to do it until it can do it. And then we'll move on to the next thing. So in a way, I suppose, you're sort of saying a little prayer, or you're asking a request to surrender and say, I really don't know what to do. Can you please show me? And then, Todd, forget about it. And during the day, then you'll probably get hundreds and hundreds of different clues about turn left, turn left, turn left, turn left. But your head will be saying, I think I should turn right here. That'll be the old program trying to suck you back in. So it's like one day at a time, one moment at a time. It's all about learning to let go. Because as we let go, a weight drops off. We become enlightened because we feel lighter, and up we go. And so really, ascension is about surrendering the heaviness, so that we sort of automatically start to levitate. And the opposite of gravity, because gravity is a downward force, is levity. And levity means light heart. Levity, and it means light-heartedness, Todd. Because we've been so fucking miserable, mate, haven't we? I mean, look around the world, and I'm not being funny. It came to me the other day. You know that expression, they walk amongst us? Well, no, they don't, Joe. You walk amongst them, right?
Wow.
Because 70% of the world are still, unfortunately, to use these words, and no judgment, they're still asleep, or they're still unawakened, or they still don't see what's going on. So you're actually walking amongst them. They don't walk amongst us, you see, because we're unfortunately or fortunately in the minority at the moment, but there's lots of power and radiation and radiance coming out, which is carrying a message sort of unconsciously.
Wow, you're full of information today. And you know what I realized too, in talking to you and listening to this last part of it, that conversation that I had with myself last night, or I should say with myselves, multiple personalities, my multi-dimensionality, that I've never had that conversation before. I've never had that type of conversation before, and I didn't even know it. Now, I touched on this, just hear me out, but this was 100%. I left no stone unturned, and it wasn't brutal, and it wasn't intensive, intensifying, or, it was just like me having a conversation with my local council and going through every single possibility. But you know what I just realized was the difference? was, it was all on feeling. Every single thing was determined by the feeling in my body. I've never had that happen before, not to that degree. No, I've sat with my feelings and learned to do that. I know there's some type of relationship between that and creative energy erupting within me. I don't know how it works. I just know that that's something I've noticed. But what happened last night, I'm telling you that it was like the body was the king, was the decision maker, was the judge. That's what I'm saying. The body itself, that was the first time for me. And I just realized it talking to you right now. That was the thing. It was crazy because I kept going through, and I would go through and answer 10, 12 times. I'm going to go. And then it would come, and then I'd go back. I'm going to go. And I was going through each one of them again and again and again and again. But what I realize now was the body was just reinforcing and getting a little bit louder and a little bit louder and a little bit louder until I came to what you said. Peace of mind. Peace. In all, that's crazy. It's crazy how these things happen, and then we'll talk about it the next day, but it's not. That's part of it, isn't it?
And isn't that about what happened is reaching that 0 point, that sacred space, that place of neutrality. And in that place of neutrality is peace of mind, is pure balance. That's what it's all about. And if we can be in that more and more, then surely the world will become a better place because we make more healthy, more balanced, more quality choices.
Yeah.
And I see that that's the way it is. But Todd, it's got to start off with, if somebody asks you, how are you feeling? You have to tell the truth. And that's why you can't really sometimes just go to anybody and tell them, because they mightn't be ready for that then. It's got to be someone that you've got some degree of trust with, where you can just spill the beans completely. And they're not going to say, "Ooh, you evil bastard! Never darken my."
Maybe
no,
not
do you
to
understand?
you.
No, seriously, somebody that you can trust, and you can pour your heart out to, And I'm fortunate that I have probably about 6 people, and you're one of these people, Todd, right? That I could just say, "Look, all these things that happened to me." And I know you wouldn't say, well, I can't talk to you again like that because it goes against my principles. Or you might do, but I don't think so. You'd say, no, is that it then? And probably yawn because it's so boring, And here's something people say to me, you don't seem to be very interested. I said, well, to be honest with you, I'm not really interested in what you're interested in. I'm only interested in listening to the things that interest me. Right. And so I'm not there as a counsellor. I'm not there anymore because I've done all that. And most of it was pretense, Todd. And this is really important to me to get this out. Right. I'm not a counsellor. I don't know what you should do because I don't know what I should do from one moment to the next. I'm just working with my intuition to feed me one moment of something, to work on it there and then. And all I can ever do is say, you get back to your heart and start listening to your heart, because that's where you're going to get your guidance from. So I don't know. And they say to me, well, you've got all these qualifications, you should know. You see, and I think then I have to say to them, on your way.
Don't let the door hit you in the ass.
Let me just do this final thing, and I'm not Todd. I'm not a counsellor. I've done that. I've got, sort of counselling qualifications. I've got coaching qualifications. I can see that was just another thing that was driven by society to say, well, you're good with people, Joe. Todd, most people, when they're talking to me now, bore me shitless, and that's the truth of it, Right? God. I can't do small talk. I can't. I never really have. And I've been like you. I've put all these persona on, these masks, to be in situations where I was bored out of my mind, and it's been like a waste of time. And I've come to the point now, maybe it's because I'm a little bit older now and all that. I don't think so. I think there's more going on. But this is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I say. This is what I see. If you don't like it, I'm sorry about that, but I really don't care. Right? I care more about what I feel and think than what you think and feel about me.
Yeah. You're not
I'm
saying.
Sorry if that. I'm sorry if that offends you, but tough shit.
Well, well, you're not saying I don't like you. You're just
No,
saying
of
I
course
don't
not.
care in the sense that I got stuff on my plate. Like this last week, where this going through the 22nd and all that, man, I got message after message after message from people, which isn't normal, that wanted to tell me what was going on with them. So that was an easy read. And I think it was an easy read for everybody because we know it was a pretty intense week. The thing I love about these four things is these are the names that you gave them, but everything is attached to it. I can see it. Like for instance, number one, security, survival, right? Abundance. Now I know, as sure as I'm sitting here, that this financial structure will not last. I don't believe crypto will be the answer. I whatever it is, it's going to be of something that we create from purity. I know it's not going to be kind of what somebody was saying earlier, the specialties, and they want to charge a bunch for it. And there's nothing wrong. I'm just trying to say there's something being worked out, and that tells me that if I can find peace, which like I was saying earlier, I've got that peace of my situation right now. And I'm not saying this, please, people, don't send me messages and etc. I don't know where I'll be living. I can feel it in my bones. I don't know what the situation will be, where I'll be. I don't know, but I'm at peace with it. Now, if I can maintain that, along with, just that one, let's just say, if I can maintain that and be at peace, I know abundance will follow. Abundance will be magnetized. I will be a magnet. So that's pretty cool. I like this one today. This was a good one.
Great, mate.
You're in my heart too, Bruce, forever. Bruce, I think we're gonna do a 48-hour soul-a-thon this weekend. So I have your number. I will be calling you directly. See if we can coerce Bruce to come on here. Man, you and Bruce would be hilarious. You and Bruce would be absolutely hilarious. Jason,
Bruce
Michael,
makes a lot of comments, doesn't he, Bruce? Like
oh,
yourself?
he's a pillar of Soulogy, man. He's a Jason, Michael, and Heather Grace are going to come on. They're one of 5 shows I've got to reschedule from that 72-hour purge. So,
And I've just had a message. You're very selfish not going to that thing last night. That was just the voice.
Well,
of
you know what?
demon.
But look, and you know what? I just got a message too. So this was from Morgan. She's like, a practice of self-integrity. Well, you know what? That was the whole thing last night. The whole basis that wasn't. I can't really say it wasn't the feeling in the body, but if I had to put a word to it, it was integrity. So, you just made a joke, but I still have unfinished business, right? Because once I came out of it and went through the purging woke up this morning, all that, whatever, I realized I need to reach out to my friend and I need to say, thank you for inviting me. I just wasn't up to it. I don't need to go into all, you know what I mean? But the integrity doesn't stop with the decision, or at least the examination of integrity or lack thereof, right? Because that's really what it is to me. It like she hit it just right. It is a self-integrity that would, if you look at those 4 categories, that would carry over into those categories, or if carried over into those categories, brings a uniformity and a cohesion to those categories, which is fucking awesome because it's instinct, and instinct is this vessel, is this universe, right? I don't really recall instinct being as big a player in the ethers in my travels. It's a different kind of environment, I'm sure it's there, but this is huge because this is the animal part of us, for lack of a better word. So this is a really good.
But where the focal, just to finish off, where the focal point, the human body is the focal point of all that processing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it works through those 7 endocrine glands, and that's why our smells start to change as we ascend, because different chemicals are being produced. I can go into the energetics of this, but we come in from subtle energy. It sort of materializes then. It then becomes liquid. So we go from ether to gaseous to liquid to flesh then. And so the whole point about it is, Todd, is our hormones start to change as we ascend because our processing's changing as well. And that's why when you get to the 7th chakra, you automatically produce dimethyltryptamine. You don't have to take it in or snort it or inject it or anything like that. It's because you actually produce it naturally, and that's the spirit molecule that's being produced because you're actually at that level of soul processing, and that's why you can remain generally in bliss consciousness all the time, because it's a chemical that's being produced by your consciousness itself. But the thing is, Todd, people can take chemical substances, but what it does is it puts them in the right state, but they're at the wrong stage. And that's why when they can't ingest it from external, that's why they drop back to the stage that they're really at of their soul. Although they might have had all these exhilarating experiences and had all these downloads and uploads and everything else, inspirations, it's a chemically induced one that's been externally derived. And that's why you can't sustain it or maintain it, because it's false.
That's profound. That's profound. Speaks. Well, it is, because that speaks to addiction.
Yeah,
it speaks to addiction because I mean, I've certainly had my moments, and if you look, I did obviously a lot of recreational things, but I did a lot of intentional soul searching, utilizing external things, right? But and you're right, you get a little dose, you get a little dimensional experience or out of body or whatever it might be, but it doesn't stay, and you go back and you go back, and then when you start going back, you start to play with fire, because you're like you said, you're not in the, what did you say? You're not at the phase you need to be in for that stuff to be introduced into your system. Now, going back to what you said right at the very beginning of that last piece, you said, and this is how DMT is produced in the body. What did you say leading up to that?
It's basically as we ascend and we process from the 7th dimension, or whatever we call that,
okay,
right? Then the information and the subtle energies coming in, the consciousness at that level is processing the information, which is then dropping down and producing the biochemical substances that actually make the DMT. So it's consciousness that's creating the DMT.
Yeah.
Right. So DMT, dimethyltryptamine, it's part of like a 5-hydroxytrip. It's related to serotonin and all these hormones. So it's put together, all these molecules are put together in a different way because of the way our soul is processing information and sending it through the human mind into the human brain, from the pineal to the pituitary gland, and then from the pituitary gland down to the adrenal glands. Like you said before, Todd, everything's connected, but it all starts off with consciousness and how we process information. So it all starts off, I mean, Morgan will tell you, it's morphogenesis, it's, bio-spiritual morphogenesis, and it's all to do with, really, is about the depth of meditation and where your soul's at on its journey, really.
Yeah.
And it's not a linear thing, because sometimes you might take an action that fills a whole 3 spheres all in one go, and it completely changes overnight. It's a fascinating subject, and I feel that we're only ever just scratching the surface of what's absolutely possible here.
Yeah, well, I love the whole thing with the instinct thing. I mean, I don't know, and I got to say, you're on today, and we've done a lot of shows together, and we joke around a lot, and I think today's just kind of a reminder to people that you're not just funny. You're
handsome too. I'm starting to like myself with this. I think, yeah. I look younger than you today. Have you noticed that?
But that's not hard to do. If it wasn't for my black eyebrows, You know. Well, anyway, I'm not complaining. Hey, it's good talking to you.
And you, mate.
We'll see
And
you.
I'm on next month, 21st of December.
Yeah, 21st December. That ought to
should
be it. Yeah, I'm gonna step away for a bit and probably come back before too long and do a. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna do a 48-hour solothon. That doesn't mean I have to be on all the time. I may even get people to sit in this chair for me, so we can simulate my dream, which is to have a 24-hour channel with 24 DJs a day who sit in the chair, play videos, talk, bring in guests around the world, and we just hand it off like a baton, you know? But that's just one of my dreams, whatever. But I'll be back. Thanks, Joe. I love you, man.
All right, mate. Lovely to see you. Thanks
Appreciate
very
it.
much, everybody.